Money Majors, episode 14. Welcome to Money Majors, your podcast for young entrepreneurs by young entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Garrett.
And we are going to go down the latest news of young entrepreneurs, student entrepreneurs, startups, competitions, VCs, and everything else in between that we've been able to do the mad dash scramble over the past week through Google News and everything else. How you doing this week, Garrett?
I'm sweet.
That's better than bitter. I've been doing pretty well. I've been freezing to death up here in Northern Virginia. We went from nice weather to suddenly freezing, blistering, cold weather. And it's been driving me a little crazy. So, without further ado of more babble and banter that we apparently need to do more of, we're going to skip right into the news. First up from Reuters, I came across a great article on kind of the rise of the adolescent CEO. It starts off by talking about a fellow named Josh Buckley, who's the chief executive of an online gaming startup. And he has a little bit of a problem. He's only 20 years old. And he wanted to attend next month's Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, but that's going to prove to be a little bit of a problem. A lot of the parties and events that he wants to get into to talk to some of these venture capitalists and other funding executives, it's all for people who are over 21. And, poor old Josh, his fake ID was recently confiscated, as any good 20-year-old knows. The two new ones he ordered from a company in China just haven't arrived yet, so he's in a little bit of a bind. But that gives rise to this idea of what do you do with this new breed of post-Zuckerberg or the era of Zuck entrepreneurs who are all quite young, and not just 27 years old, but we're talking 19 years old coming up with these things. Mark Andreessen, whose venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz is one of the several people that backs Buckley's companies. He says, at a certain point, they can't get much younger. We're going to have to invest in preschool. Now, everybody knows Mark Andreessen. He founded Netscape, when Netscape's one of the first browsers for the internet, very big in the day. He was a young guy himself when he created it. But Andreessen and others are starting to see that some of these young entrepreneurs are self-consciously molding themselves and kind of into the image of Mark Zuckerberg. And they're all kind of starting to see themselves as Mark Zuckerberg. They see the Zuck at 27 becoming a billionaire, and they are at 19 coming up with X product, and they say, I'm going to be a billionaire someday. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Now, Joe Cross of Google Ventures kind of quipped in and said that some of his biggest hiccups with young entrepreneurs are the business references that these young people don't understand because they're really too young to be aware of them. And then Andreessen actually gives a great example of young entrepreneurs coming up to him and saying, "What did Netscape do again?" That's a little laughable a little bit, but still, it's something that you have these young entrepreneurs with young ideas that we've been going on many times before. Lots of energy, lots of time, no sleep, great ideas. But what do you do? What do you do with some of the younger people, Garrett, that has these kind of issues? How do you handle a 19-year-old versus a 35-year-old in a business?
Well, you can't co-sign to get them in a bar. So you can co-sign to get them on contracts, but I don't know what he's going to do about the after-parties issue. I've dealt with that too, in a lot of networking events, DC stuff I'll go to, where at first it was I was always cautious, and I had to call ahead to see if the venue would allow people who are under 21 to be there.
Yeah, a lot of bands have this problem. A lot of music bands where kids start a band and they want to go play shows, but a lot of the shows are in bars or clubs where you have to be 21 years or older
just to get
in. And so they have to figure out some special arrangement for the drummer who's 15 to get in to some of these shows. And I think it's a very interesting point to make, is that as more young entrepreneurs who are popping up and showing that I can become a millionaire at 23, then you're going to have people going, I can be a millionaire at 17, 16, 15. Lord knows how much younger they're going to get. How do you handle them?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's what the article gets into, and I think it's a very good article to kind of get into and check out, and it's something that is worth to think about, because as we've discussed before, the economy goes down, people can't get jobs as they come out of college, so they're starting to found more businesses. People are coming out of high school, they're maybe saying college is not for me because what do I get if I go to college?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the job market's down. I see a lot of my friends who are coming out of college not getting jobs, so I'll just start a business. Well, you're 18 starting a business, and maybe it's that website that's going to take off. But how do you navigate? So it's an interesting question that I think we should explore more into as people.
Well, definitely. And our next article kind of touches on this. It's 2 college students launch a successful startup, but they stay in school, so they're all about trying to do everything at once.
That's not easy.
No, it's very tough. And with the Silicon Valley gold rush in full swing and venture capital money flowing at unprecedented rates to new companies, young entrepreneurs with big dreams are packing their bags for the West Coast in droves. In fact, it seems staying in school has become the exception to the rule among the young tech crowd. But there's 2 20-year-old entrepreneurs, Dan Schipper and Patrick Leahy, who are mentioned in this article, and they founded Airtime for Email, which I actually think is pretty interesting. And this is something I've thought about for a while, but never really had a solution for. And they do have a solution, but Airtime for Email constitutes a major advance in email software. While the content and emails you receive today doesn't change, these two have begun to upend that paradigm. And what they do with their software is old emails update whenever they're reopened. So maybe they're using some sort of subversion, version control system. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, but they also update based on the recipient's device and location, and all this happens while keeping the user's information private. So
Really?
you don't have to worry about getting an email and then wondering how aged it is and if it's still current and relevant, and checking for new emails like subsequent. Here's an update, here's another update, where it gets kind of really annoying.
That kind of sounds like the Gmail function, or maybe even Wave of email, rather than emails being single like virtual letters that you open and put in a pile, they become conversations. And as the conversation flows, you can skip back into the conversation and see where things have been, and everything's kind of linking together. I always thought it'd be a good idea to take an email, and rather than having that email being a static you could actually click a button and add stuff to that email as your own personal notes. Like, say I got an email from you that said, we need to complete this task by this date. I could actually I can click a button, add notes that could flow inside of that email. Did this, did that, did this, did that, save. And so not only can I look back at the email, but I can look at my own notes to the email.
Totally kind of annotate your own emails, or it's metadata, so you write information about the email.
Yeah, but it takes an entirely different program. But I would love to see this Airtime.
Yeah.
In play now. I muted this out, but I laughed when you said Patrick Leahy, because that's the senator from Vermont. So
maybe he's not the one who's 20 and still in school. And so finally, with these individuals, they're saying that they're not convinced that they need to raise funds or drop out to make a startup. So they're not only going against dropping out, but they're going against raising funds. They think they could pull it off. They say that yes, this is the road less traveled, but we've had great successes so far. Beta tests 3 weeks ago. They've got 100 businesses using it, registered by the time this article was posted. 150,000 Airtime emails were read. So they've obviously got a good consumer base for at least testing this beta out. So they're doing well already.
Hey, I guess that's the name of the game, is getting a product out there. That's a good point. That's a good question to ask. I ask you on this now. Is it better? Let's pick a piece of software. Is it better to take your startup with a piece of software and release it the first time you get a working version? Do you release that, or do you wait until it's perfect and then release it?
So kind of like comparing the early and often publishing approach or whatever versus like the wait till everything's perfect.
Yeah. What in your opinion?
Unless someone's gonna die from a bug, like maybe it's not like helicopter control software or something to do with like vital organs. I would totally release early and often.
This is something I ran into working on Capitol Hill with startups, and we're not talking software startups, but actual tangible devices startups that there was a contention between one faction of the company who say, look, we've got this widget and we should release the widget because we have already a market of those folks who are always there to buy. They're always buying the first thing. They're the first ones they're early adopters. We have this market of early adopters who think we're cool. They're willing to dump the cash to buy this product because they want to be an early adopter. Let's get it out there, see how it works, put it in the hands of real consumers, and then let them tell us what's wrong with it, and then we can come up with version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. But then you have this other side that is more an older generation, typically more business-minded, less tech-savvy sometimes, who says, no, you have to release the first one has to be perfect, because the first one, you need to make tons of sales off that first one to be able to afford the rest of them. Now, we've seen this in some of the car companies that have come out, like Fisker Automotive. Fisker is a Virginia-based automotive company.
And how many years did it take for them to produce a car?
It took them about 3 years.
Yeah.
It was
I thought it was more.
A very quick turnaround. Huh. But the Fisker car, brand new startup, it was a luxury electrical hybrid vehicle, much like the Tesla, but 4-door, very nice car. They spent a lot of time and they decided, you know what, we've got a good version of the car. Let's get it out there now. Let's not wait. So they didn't wait. They put it out there, but they've had a lot of problems with it. And so the company is now in danger, and it's having its own problems because they weren't able to quickly capitalize on the turnaround of improvements, making it better, and getting it back out there. Whereas in the case of software, that is a little easier. In the case of websites and online internet-based technology, it's a little easier.
Yeah, it's easier to push up new code than pull back 100,000 vehicles with the gas pedals that don't work or something like that. That's tougher.
Yeah, but even a solar panel. There's a really wonderful energy company that's going to be coming out that I believe it's called the Pick, and you shake it, and by shaking it creates energy, and you can plug your cell phone into it, and you could plug stuff in and it'll charge it. But the idea is that you could put it in your pocket, and as you're walking, it generates electricity. You can put it in your bag. As you're walking, it generates electricity. I've been waiting for this thing to come out, and I keep thinking, I know it works, and I know people have been beta testing it. I know it's a good product, but are you going to release it? Even if it only produces half the energy,
right?
When it comes out, I still would like for it to. I'd like to get my hands on it, play around with it, and then buy into version 2, buy into version 3. I'm sold. If I can just put it in my backpack, and as I hike around wherever it is that I am, it recharges my cell phone. For me, that's
hey, if it works, I think ship it. You're getting into with the efficiency thing, you're getting into optimization, and you got to decide how long you want to wait before you ship. Are you going to ship when it's only 50% efficient, or are you going to wait till it's like 85%? I don't know. I would do more often, and if it works, ship it out, and kind of iterate back to add new features. So get with a website or something, get your base set of features out there, and add more over time. Don't try to go in and do 100 features at once, and try to get everything to play nicely. So.
Yep. So it's just an interesting question, I think, that needs to be answered.
Well, there's my opinion. So, next article is entitled "Hire Slow, Fire Fast, and Other Advice for Young Entrepreneurs," and this is a management type article. There's a bunch of points in here, advice points, and the first is think holistically when choosing investors. An investor is a long-term partner, so it's absolutely critical that they be a good one. So think of an investor more as more than just money. 2 is be mindful of people's personalities when hiring. It's not just about how skilled a prospective hire is. It's also important that they work well with the team and that their background enables them to bring a unique viewpoint to the work. If someone doesn't mesh well with the culture of the company, the most important thing is you not drag out the inevitable, which in this case would be a firing or bringing down of the whole team. Just don't hire them in the first place. The next 2 points I had issues with. The final 2 points. First was designed for first impressions, and then, quote, scaling. A software application mostly means becoming an everyday part of a user's life. I thought that was a weird use of the word scaling. I don't exactly agree with it. I think that scaling is more about enabling more and more users and growth over time and being able to handle that. So I don't I mean, I think what they are trying to say here is expanding like the uses of your software applications, so it's not just a one-time use thing, but something that a user would use throughout the day for more uses, so you get more eye time or face time with your application. And then the last point is a question. It says, is college overrated? And we've seen this again and again. And their conclusion is that it depends, which there's no clear answer here. I don't know why they even,
we ask this question almost every episode.
Yeah, they just pose both sides, so they didn't really have a conclusion there, a yes or no sort of thing. It says depends on the situation. You're always going to get mixed and qualified responses to that question, so I don't think there's ever going to be an answer.
Well, I think as Generation Y, as Generation X inches more and more towards retirement or poverty or both, Generation Y is going to be this mantle of young entrepreneurs just throwing caution to the wind and going for it. And I think that's when we're going to find out in maybe 15 years, 10 years, 15 years, we'll find out whether or not this idea of foregoing college and just going for it was, or will be a good idea, and whether or not do you need 10, 15 years of business experience before you leap into something. I mean, Zuck is the example, is the shining example everyone likes to point out to, but just as many people point out Zuck, there's just as many people who are older than Zuck or younger than Zuck that completely utterly failed at business. So I think it just it's going to take time. It's going to take us about 10, 15 years before we ever figure that out. So, moving along, there's a wonderful article from Boston.no, which is a magazine that talks about the Boston area, that entitled 48 Hours and No Sleep Later. Startup Scramble gives real-world experience to student entrepreneurs. This is something that actually in the latest issue of Wired Magazine, which you're going to cover later, talks about startups and these stay up all night, eat lots of pizza, drink lots of Red Bull, and crank a startup as fast as you can. I'm starting to get interested into these, of how these things work, because you have to think really fast on your feet, and you're kind of in the middle of excitement. But this article talked about Microsoft Nerd event, Nerd.
Which is what?
It's just called Microsoft Nerd. And at Microsoft Nerd, which is a conference, they had the Startup Scramble, which is led by Stephen Douglas, founder of both the Startup Scramble and an organization called Young Impact. And it started off with presentations by a lot of really seasoned veterans of startups, from legal sessions by Goodwin Procter to tech tips by Northeastern's Entrepreneurs Club. He had Nick Herbold from Scavenger, Bill Dvorak from Topcoder. He had folks from Highland Capital, Campus Live, and you start off by giving lots of seminars and lectures on the individual components to a startup, kind of a quick and dirty idea, and then the students essentially started their startups. They started putting them together. They pitched it in front of a panel of judges, and teams were essentially given 5 minutes to present, and they were offered prizes, from Microsoft Connects to tickets to Critical Mass for 1 month of free workspace, things like that. So literally in 48 hours, you're said, okay, here's what you need to do a startup. Here's the elements of a startup. Now do it. And literally overnight, they did it. Out of 10 teams, the team that won was called 1 Degree, which is kind of is pitched as a Yelp for nonprofits. The platform helps to connect children and families to poverty-fighting resources. Ray Faustino, a student from the Harvard Kennedy School, said he began working on this business plan for 1 Degree back in 2010, and that winning kind of helped validate this as a sustainable business model. But he also said that, as others kind of echoed, that if it hadn't been for this startup competition, he would not have put that much time and effort into doing it. So it almost seemed like some of the people who come into the competition already have ideas, but they're kind of languishing on paper.
Or they just need to motivated, like something to measure against or compete towards, kind of like a goal.
Yeah, and so it's not until they actually threw them to the wolves, as we were saying, into this, that it forces you to just do it. So maybe that's an interesting idea for universities out there, just to have these kind of competitions often and say, come on, come all students, we're having 48-hour competition. And it's kind of a catalyst to force you to sit still in one spot and accomplish, some next step to this business startup. I think that's a really great idea. And
should we get Mason to have one?
I think we should get every university to have them. And just rounding up this article, the runner-up was a company called Unbugged, which I'd like to find out a little bit more about them. They're just described as a full-service pest extermination agency.
I think it's good that you don't know much about them then.
Well, Unbugged was like, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good name, but yeah. Pest extermination? Really?
Sure.
48-hour startup, and you come up with a pest extermination business?
There might have been a bug problem there.
I'd love to know what they're doing. I mean, that's because you have Orkin, you have all these companies out there that are already doing pest exterminator business. What could a bunch of kids possibly come up with at a startup for pest extermination? I say that facetiously, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's something probably very big. Their team, the team's one-liner: a people-focused company in a bug-focused industry. That gave the whole room a laughter. So I thought that was pretty darn.
Got him second place.
You got him. Yeah, so they must have been doing something right. It got him second place. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, next up is along the same themes. It's about a hackathon. The article is entitled "The Hackathon is On: Pitching and Programming the Next Killer App," and this is in Wired. Available both in the magazine and at Wired.com. And the competition is called Be My App, and it's a hackathon, which is a contest to pitch, program, and present a functioning Android mobile application in 48 hours. I've got friends who have participated in hackathons and even won sums of money, like $5,000 for their apps. One of which was an app that helped potential entrepreneurs find out like what licenses and resources are out there for their business. So like what is required of them to do. Yeah.
We could use that.
An auto linker to see what you're up against, sort of thing. Want some money for that. The individual's got some other ideas, and he participates in a lot of these. It was more that one was more a Microsoft-centric one. But back to the article. The individual in this article was handed a microphone on Friday evening and was given 60 seconds to outline his idea for an app, and then 30 minutes to mingle out and schmooze with a dozen wannabe CEOs. They were vying to be one of 6, quote, idea generators. While engineers and designers are admitted automatically, people with ideas for applications, regardless of experience or qualifications, need to win over the crowd. Only the engineers and designers get to vote. He was saying that they were jockeying to recruit them and channeling. They were being used car salesmen, as this guy says. Interesting. So he says that these hackathons are like American Idol for programmers. They're marathon coding competitions that have exploded in popularity recently. You know that, we know that, we've seen these, we keep covering a lot of these. I do want to participate in one of these. I think that'd be pretty neat.
I see them bleary-eyed.
Yeah.
One of our good friends, Nina Garcia of the Hacking and Programming Club of George Mason, she's always telling me about she's going to some wonderful competition and chugging about 7 gallons of Red Bull and programming straight on through the night. And they come up with a lot of interesting ideas in the midst of programming. Maybe the program doesn't work, but they seem to come up with a lot of running ideas of, hey, we should write that down and do that next time.
I think it'd be cool to graph their heart rate over time for 48 hours. Attach like a monitor to them. I was just running this morning with someone who's training for like military marathons, and he's got a whole slew of heart rate monitors. So that was on my mind. But anyway, so these competitions have been fueled by the development of easier to use software writing tools and a new willingness among companies to allow third parties to slice and dice their data. With more than 200 hackathons that were held last year in the U.S. We're seeing, with the debut of the Apple iOS, 500,000 applications have generated $3 billion for developers. Android's 400,000 applications have earned about $100 million. So apps are a big thing, and this is a great opportunity to develop an app very quickly.
But not only that, who has time to do these overnight, mad dash 48-hour type
people who are
hackathon?
Either single or with really supportive families.
Did you say weird?
People who are either single or with really supportive families.
Oh, yes. Or students.
Students.
Young entrepreneurs. You
Right.
don't usually see, a 36-year-old father of 2 or a 29-year-old mother of 4 jumping in and doing a 48-hour hackathon of creating the next best app and startups. It almost seems like you read the title of the article and like, that's a young person thing.
Yes.
So,
yeah, and these vary from 20 developers to 500 competitors. In a warehouse, or they could be in a basement. This one I think was held in a basement. They're cheap to throw. It's about $5,000 to throw an event for 100 participants. And this is a great opportunity for companies to demo their own stuff and to get ideas really quickly.
Not only that, we have, as many engineering schools has, George Mason University has their senior design showcase.
Yes. I got to do this too.
Every year, an engineering student, either they start in the spring and they present in the fall, or they start in the fall and present in the spring. They have to spend one semester coming up with their project, their engineering project, learning about pitching projects and forming the ideas for projects. Then they spend the next semester building that project. At the end of that second semester, they present. And we have, this year we're going to have it in late April, where a lot of engineering students are going to be presenting their senior design projects, and folks from the major companies like Micron and CSC actually come and sit in. And we've had many instances in the past where a student or a group of students has presented their senior design project and they're offered a job on the spot. So I could see how you have these hackathons, and maybe you have a ragtag group of young entrepreneurs over in the corner making up something that maybe it's success, maybe it's not, but someone walking around from Google just happens to look over their shoulder and gets a vibe of these kids know what they're doing and they're really doing something cool. Hey guys, you should come down and hang out with us at Google. Here's a job. So hackathons, startup, Mad Dash startup competitions like this, it all offers an opportunity for you to get experience, but it's all the other people watching you.
Totally, yeah. I got to do that for my degree as well. But yeah, the last bit in this article is saying that Facebook does this, and their 700 plus engineers gather for 24-hour competitions at the company's offices every 2 months or so. And some hallmark features, including the like button and timeline, started as hackathon projects. So Facebook's continuing to do this. It's not just something for new startup ideas. I think that's really interesting. I'd love to do some of these. So what you got next?
By all means, go for it. Coming up next is an article from TechCrunch called First Floor Labs sold a company to Facebook, graduated 3 Y Combinator startups, and is accepting applications. It's kind of a funny article when you read it, because it is written a little sarcastically and a little humorously, but a TechCrunch reporter visited the AOL building, and as she says, other than seeing instead of finding the stench of death and decay that you would normally find at a, quote, dying company, she actually found a lot of hustle and youth and the bustle of youth. She found startups, lots and lots of startups who were very eager to show her around to some of the VC firms like SoftTech and Murado and incubators occupying this first floor of the AOL building. Someone at AOL got this bright idea to say, rather than leasing out space in the AOL building to other companies, let's give it away for free to very go-get-em startups. Mm-hmm. And not just that, but they actually kind of zeroed in on some of these companies, and they have one called First Floor Labs, which was started by a Stanford MBA, a former Facebooker, and Adam Smith of AOL Ventures. And First Floor Labs basically provides office space and amenities like a kitchen, a gym, interaction between A teams of advisors and venture capitalists to essentially 1 to 4 people startups. And these are startups who might otherwise work in coffee shops or out of apartments, because they only got 4 people, and they're not big enough to get office space. I mean, they don't have enough. So the AOL Ventures sponsorship essentially gives them this space for free for 6 months to all accepted startups, but without any further obligation or any kind of equity transferal. So it's not like some of the other incubators that we've seen in the past where, sure, you can come use our space and get advice and get resources from us, but you're going to have to give us something back. You have to give us a piece of your company, or you're going to have to make sure that if you hit it big, you take care of us. I thought that was just a really interesting, kind of cool idea, and they seem to be really taking off. Applications for First Floor Labs Spring Session, which will house 15 startups instead of just 10, so they're growing, are due by March 9th, which you can find a link in the TechCrunch article and in the show notes. And different people are stopping by, like TechCrunch and other news medias. So they're stopping by and saying, "Hey, this is a really cool idea."
That's sweet.
Yeah. So it's, I wonder if other companies are doing this, renting out large companies. Major companies saying, I mean, really, they're getting something out of it. They're seeing what's out there and they're getting ideas from it, and maybe they're
they get to choose.
They get to choose. Yeah, yeah. They get it right there at their front door.
And these groups are pre-Series A, so pitching to any investors or anything. So you're catching them way earlier, probably at the earliest stage where you could find like a pretty well-formed idea.
Brilliant idea. Brilliant.
Pursued, yeah.
I would like to know if other companies are doing this. Because this is the first one that I've heard of. I'm sure there's more.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've heard of companies actually saying, "Come on down to our headquarters," and it's actually in our headquarters building, not in not in some little office park in Menlo Park where we just happen to be a sponsor of this idea. So
cool.
Very interesting stuff. What's next?
Related article entitled "Angel Network and Fund Targets Student Entrepreneurs." This is actually something we covered last episode, and I contacted them in the meantime to find out what some of their terms were. And I heard that this is the FIG, the Find, Invest, Grow group, which combines
European.
An active network of angel investors with its own investment fund to back young entrepreneurs, particularly students and people without experience. Remember from last episode, they stressed they talked about how they don't stress the importance of gray-haired entrepreneurs, like they want younger people. I was interested. I reached out to them on behalf of the show, and they said, "I'm afraid we only work with UK and EU-based founders at present." So I guess they're open to the idea of expanding later if things go well. And I said, keep me posted. So maybe we'll see. Maybe we won't. But for right now, they're only there.
That's why we've got folks like Y Combinator.
Yes, and they even mentioned Y Combinator, and I think that's kind of the American counterpart on the West Coast. So. Well, skipping on to the next is student entrepreneurs win big in business plan contest. Again, we're seeing these contests again and again where you go and vet your idea. Two top prizes at this entrepreneurial competition. One was nanotech medicine and a new pizza ordering concept. I think you read into some of this, but this was at the Burton D. Morgan Business Plan Competition. It was held in the Burton D. Morgan Center for Entrepreneurship in Discovery Park. There were 68 initial business proposals. 5 were chosen for both undergrad and graduate competitions. Just an interesting little competition.
Purdue University, actually.
Yeah. Cuts away a lot of the ideas. The winner of the $20,000 undergraduate competition, was centered on pizza. The second place was this Kick Energy idea. Their pitch was they can make an energy powder that can turn any drink into an energy drink. They took home $10K for that. I had a little bit of issues with some of this because, for instance, with the energy stuff, there's already energy supplements out there available. There's already protein supplements you can add to your smoothies. There's stuff out there.
Power water. What about the power water where I remember seeing that there was you buy a bottle of water and it comes with a little powder, and you pour the powder into the water and it made the water into hydration or energy drink or something.
I don't know, maybe just some sort of additive supplement. Maybe it's for flavor, maybe it's got some nutritional benefits, but I'm seeing
sounds like an Amway product.
Excess Energy, exclusively owned by Amway, was purchased by them. They were going to sell it to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola lost out. Interesting little history, but they're heavy on the vitamins, and so they have a mixer. Like they'll sell you, if you want, and you run like a smoothie shop, for instance, you can buy their industrial size container of like an energy additive to add to your smoothies, and then maybe you charge your users 50 cents, $1 extra for the energy shot that you add to the whatever. Same thing with the protein things.
Yeah, I mean, well, you and I both have basically the same feeling about the winners of this competition at Purdue, is that these seem like things that are not unique. The first place winner is an idea on letting customers choose their toppings while the pizza is being made.
How's that work?
I'm not sure how that works. Maybe it's
if you choose them too late,
you push a button and the machine actually puts the sausage or puts the pepperoni on there, or you push a button, you kind of like how Subway, when you get the Subway sandwich and you say, okay, I want lettuce, or I want anchovies, and you actually see the person put it on there and you move it through the way. Like the energy supplement powders, you can turn any drink into an energy drink. I've seen that many times before. Maybe the idea of some of these competitions is not so much coming up with a unique idea, but just you're a student, do it. I mean, you could even have a competition where you'd say, Garrett, your team is to take a product which is energy powder, which can turn any drink into any drink into an energy drink. Mm-hmm. How would you make that into a startup? Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about duplicating something out there, but
with DC Week, the previous event that I was able to attend, that was like a week-long thing. I was able to attend one of their events, which is a pitch competition that was hosted at Mason at the conference center, and I went there, and there were a lot of good ideas, interesting ideas, definitely. And the audience voted, and the panel of judges being some professors and more seasoned people, but the audience liked the more interesting ideas. The judges liked the more boring but viable ideas. They said, yeah, this is, some of these ideas are truly groundbreaking and awesome, but you don't have a good monetization plan. How are you going to get me my money back plus some? So the judge's first pick was actually, I'm going to use the term generic, but some of the more boring ideas that weren't all cutting edge, but they could definitely see income coming back for. So I think that with the energy drink thing, it's not too unique, but you could charge people for it. So get your money back sooner.
So I kind of there's an interesting article I came across that kind of touches on this point, and it's from the Under 30 CEO, and we're not discussing in this episode, but it's by Stephen Levinson, and it's called "Stop Pitching, It's Not Genuine." And it's an opinion piece, but the author was talking about how he really has a problem with some of these startups and some of these pitch competitions where people will get up and they'll have these very catchphrases. They'll, like, for example, say, "So, how do we solve this?" Or "Without us, users would be lost." Or "We help grow online communities to reach their full potential." It's like these catchphrases that everyone keeps saying. He's like, just stop. You're in these pitch competitions when you're trying to sell yourself and you're trying to sell yourself to an audience. It's just like in pickup. You're trying to sell yourself for someone and hoping they say yes. The initial fault guys make when picking up girls is approaching with the wrong tonality. You're approaching with the wrong. Well, you know this, Garrett. You're a ladies' man. You're approaching. And you're saying
how the article just jumped, but yeah, keep going.
Well, yeah, you're saying the wrong thing. But I'll wrap this up a little bit. But it's that when you're pitching to a bunch of startup people, you don't want to come across as blasé, or you don't want to come across as someone who's too practiced and you're just trying to pick up phrases out of your entrepreneurial textbooks. And it gets to the point that be genuine. Tell them what they need to hear, but don't go out of your way to seem unique or special. It's like the old line from Fight Club: "You are not a unique snowflake." Oh
wow, I love that one.
I get the feeling sometimes, based on the other articles we've seen about these startup competitions and the types of feedback that people are and are not getting at these startup competitions, someone sometimes needs to say, "Look, you are not a unique startup. Someone's done this before," or we've heard these sayings before. Totally. And I think it's worthwhile saying. I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but I think it's worthwhile to say to people, if you're going to do startups and you're going to pitch to a group of investors, you're going to pitch to mentors, be genuine. Be yourself. You don't need to come up with flowery references, because it's like American Idol. They've heard it. They've been hearing it for the past 3 days from 10,000 other people. It's the different ones that make them wake up and not fall asleep. So.
Cool. Very last thing is about an event. I actually saw this on Facebook. It's called the Lean Startup Machine. They have a number of events across the country, particularly in the cities. There's one in March coming up in DC for our locals, and we'll add it to the calendar. I've been adding events to our Money Majors calendar, which is available on our site. go ahead and check it out, see what's coming up. But with the Lean Startup Machine, they provide participants with a valuable framework of tools, techniques, and resources designed to help early-stage companies identify key customers and iterate their products quickly. Startups face incredibly difficult odds, and the vast majority of them will fail. They say that this happens while the Lean Startup methodologies are not a safeguard against failure. They do provide a foundation for real, measurable improvement. And Lean Startup is not just about capital efficiency, but it also encompasses a paradigm-shifting way of thinking about how to build new companies and products and how to bring those products to market faster. So just staying tapped into the
always.
I'm staying tapped into the local startup community, find out what are some of these events and adding them to the calendar.
Yeah, this idea of the Lean Startup is a huge push that it keeps coming up over and over again. We've been tracking the progress of some of these folks over at our own wonderful university, the George Mason University. Those folks, Startup Mason, which is being run by David Miller. We get his startup emails, or his little update emails, and he's a big fan of Lean Startup. He's a big fan of just getting things off the ground and not worrying about investing in office space, and not worrying about investing in things you don't need, and keeping it lean, like working out of a coffee shop and stuff. And he's actually making progress with his students. And it's something really interesting. It's as I said, it's called Startup Mason, and we talked about it back in episode 11. But he's a big fan of the Lean Startup, and I'm slowly getting there.
Very cool.
Very cool. So that's going to wrap up episode 14. We are wonderful episode 14 in, and we hope you enjoyed 14 episodes thus far. We're still kicking it. As we always say, if you love us, hate us, you got suggestions, you want to talk to us about your startup, you want to talk to us about things we may have covered incorrectly or could have covered better in the podcast, please send us an email, podcast@moneymajors.net. You can also tweet us at moneymajors on Twitter, facebook.com/moneymajors, and of course, by all means, visit the website, www.moneymajors.net, where you can find show notes and other links to articles and commentary by yours truly. Thanks a lot for listening. See you next time.
Money, 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 all I ever hear these days. Every song that the DJ plays, talking of a similar situation. Ain't got none and got to get some. Gotta have more than I had before. Gotta have more than the man next door. Every day I gotta make some more, some more, some more. Well, give me a break, yeah, or let me take some time out. Gotta frisk my mind out before I lose my life now.